always been a land of incredible wealth, not just of kings and emperors, but of merchants, bankers, and traders who shaped the economy from behind the scenes. Long before the Ambanis, Birlas, or Shantidas Zaveri, there were powerful business dynasties in ancient Patliputra, Ujjain, and Takshila. Welcome to Wealth in India Through the Millennia, where we uncover the lost legends of India's richest individuals. In our first episode, we journey back more than 2200 years to the age of the Mauryan Empire when India boasted one of the most advanced and wealthy economies of the ancient world. The Golden City of Patliputra. Patliputra, the imperial capital of the Mauryan Empire, was among the largest cities in the world around 300 BCE. Greek ambassador Megasthenes compared it to Babylon and Susha in scale and sophistication. Wooden palaces stood tall with polished columns and gold embellishments, wide roads, crisscrossed markets filled with exotic goods, ivory, silk, spices, gemstones, and perfumes from across the subcontinent and beyond. But who ran this economy? Not just kings, but merchants, guild heads, and financiers who wielded as much wealth as minor royalty. A state that loved business. The Arthashastra attributed to Chanakya wasn't just a manual for politics, it was also a blueprint for economic governance. It speaks of state-run mines, forests, and salt works, trade monopolies on liquor, textiles, and metals, detailed tax codes for everything from artisans to caravan traders. But private enterprises thrived too. Merchant guilds called Shrenis operated like modern chambers of commerce, organizing trade, resolving disputes, and even lending money at interests. The rise of merchant elites. Many of these merchants were not just middlemen, they were industrialists controlling mining operations, textile production, and riverine trade. Some ran entire fleets of ships trading with Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, and even the Greco-Roman world. Others were bankers issuing loans, funding temples, and collecting interest on capital. Though names rarely survive, inscriptions from places like Ujjain, Mathura, and Bharuch suggest that merchant families sponsored public works, water tanks, schools, temples, roads, earning both wealth and social prestige. Business and law in modern India. The modern state actively supported commerce but also regulated it meticulously. Guilds had legal standing. A dispute between two merchants could be settled by their peers rather than the king. Wages were standardized, weights and measures fixed, and market inspectors appointed to check malpractices. Think of it, an empire where consumer protection laws and financial ethics were embedded into law over 2000 years ago. India's global trade power. India exported textiles from Varanasi and Ujjain, spices from Kerala, ivory and pearls from southern ports, and even iron and steel tools from eastern India. In return came gold coins, wine, coral, and glassware from Rome and the Hellenistic world. Ports like Tamralipta, Bharuch, and Kaveripatnam buzzed with global energy. Indian merchants had warehouses in faraway ports. This wasn't just local trade, it was early globalization. The forgotten millionaires. While royal names like Ashoka live on, the merchant kings of ancient India were forgotten. Yet we see clues in the temples they built, in the pillars they funded, and in the copper plate inscriptions they immortalized their donations. Some families served as bankers to kings, funding wars, minting coins, and supplying elephants and horses. This was wealth not from conquest, but from enterprise. The guilds that shaped a nation. Guilds were specialized and powerful. They were the Tambulika Shreni, Bittal sailors, the Suvarnakara Shreni, goldsmiths, the Tantuvaya Shreni, weavers. These were not just occupational groups, they had endowments, charters, and even internal codes of conduct. Some guilds collectively donated land and constructed halls and monasteries, like cooperatives funding social infrastructure today. Urban comforts, rural power. Much of the modern economy was still agrarian. Land taxes funded the empire, but wealthy merchant families often owned large tracts of agricultural land, operated grain warehouses, and had their own transport networks: bullock carts, elephants, river barges. Wealth was not just in gold or coin, but in land, grain, influence, and networks. Intergenerational wealth and education. Business knowledge was passed down through families. Children learned arithmetic, contracts, weight conversions, and scripts. Women too were involved, especially in textiles and retail. This was not just survival, it was a vision of intergenerational prosperity where education, culture, and trade were interwoven. Culture of generosity. India's merchant class had a long standing culture of dan, philanthropy. Many endowed Buddhist monasteries, Jain temples, and public wells. They donated land for grazing, schools for children, and even money for famine relief. True wealth was measured not just by what you owned, but by what you gave. Echoes of forgotten wealth. The modern era reminds us that India's wealth wasn't built overnight. It was grown over the centuries by the hands of artisans, the minds of merchants, and the vision of a state that respected business. These forgotten millionaires laid the foundations of India's entrepreneurial spirit, and their legacy lives on in every family run business, every crowded market, every port, and every act of enterprise across India today. Thank you for watching. In the next episode, we explore the wealth of Seth Shantidar Zaveri, the diamond merchant who challenged emperors and hosted weddings that made the Mughal court jealous. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story of India's eternal wealth.